So, in today's session, we are going to learn a new chapter. We are going to start a new chapter, which is known The Princess September, which is written by William Somerset Maugham. So, who is William Somerset Maugham? So, it is usually everywhere it is written W. Somerset Maugham. So, the full name is William Somerset Maugham. He was born in 1874 in Paris and died in the year 1965. He was an English novelist, playwright, and a short story writer. He was one of the most reputed and well-known writers of his era and one of the highest paid authors of the time. Maugham became a qualified physician, but writing was his real passion, and that's where he started writing or taking writing as a serious profession in his life. During World War One, Maugham worked for the British Secret Service. He traveled all over the world and made many visits to America. After World War Two, Maugham made his home in south of France and continued to move between England and Nice till his death in 1965. Some of his most important works like Of Human Bondage, The Razor's Edge, The Painted Wall, Theatre, so these are some of his most important writings. He is also remembered for his short stories, most of them dealing with the lives of the Western colonists, mostly British, in the Far East. The emotional toll which the colonies had to bear by their isolation was expressed in the stories. Maugham can also be regarded as one of the most important travel writers of the Indo-war years. His work, "The Gentleman in the Parlour", deals with a journey through the places like Burma, Siam, Cambodia, and Vietnam. This work is regarded as Maugham's best work in his genre. Many of his works have also been adapted for both television and radio. So now let's talk about the princess. That's what we are going to focus in this lecture. Princess September. So Princess September, while he wrote the story Princess September while he was staying in a hotel in Bangkok and recovering from an attack of malaria. He said, and because he said, I'm just quoting it, and because I had nothing to do except look over the river and enjoy the weakness that held me blissfully to my chair, I invented the fairy story. Here it is. So from the title itself, it is very obvious that it's a fairy story, Princess September. It's like a fairy tale. So this story actually combines the qualities of a fairy story with a realistic tale. In fact, it has a moral and reads like a parable. The moral is that the freedom is the true secret of happiness. So every fairy tale it ends with a message. Even the story, all stories has a message. So here, because it's a fairy tale, it has it's not having a sad ending. It's usually a fairy tale usually ends with a happy ending, right? So that element also we can find in this particular story. So in this particular session, we can find the story Princess September is the story of a princess who is convinced by her jealous sisters to put her songbird inside a cage. So this is the one-line summary to this particular story. Now let's learn a lot about it. I'm going to read the story. You have to listen. First, the king of Siam had two daughters, and he called them Night and Day. Then he had two more, so he changed the names of the first ones and called the four of them after the seasons like spring and autumn, winter and summer. But in course of time he had three others, and he changed the names again and called all seven by the days of the week. But when his eighth daughter was born, he did not know what to do till he suddenly thought of the months of the year. So we have 7 weeks in a day, right? Sorry, in a week, 7 days in a week, right? So when we say 7 days in a week, like Monday to Sunday, So then, when the eighth child was born, the king was confused what to do. So it's seven children are there, but what about the eighth child? So then he thought of changing the name of those children, and now he was thinking of changing them into the months of the year. So that's what we can see. Previously, it was like Monday, Tuesday, and all, but now it's changed to another name, which is because of the eighth child. So, but when his eighth daughter was born, he did not know what to do till he suddenly thought of the months of the year because there's 12 months, right? So the queen said there were only 12, and it confused her to have to remember so many new names. But the king had a methodical mind, and when he made it up, he never could change it if he tried. He changed the names of all his daughters and called them January, February, March. So these January, February, and March, they are actually Siamese. Until he came to the youngest, who was called August. So August is the eighth child. And the next one was called. So then the ninth child was born, and she was known as September. But suddenly again there is a confusion because only they have 12 months, right? What will happen if there is a 13th child? Because months in a year it's 12. So the queen got confused. If we have a 13th child, then what are we going to do? The 13th daughter. Okay, so what are we going to do? So that only leaves October, November, and December, said the queen. And after that, we shall have to begin all over again. So the king is a methodical minded man, right? So he said, no, I don't want more daughters now. 12 is more than enough. We have to stop there. Okay, if we don't, then what will happen? No, we shan't, said the king, because I think 12 daughters are enough for any man. And after the birth of dear little December, I shall be reluctantly compelled to cut off your head. So this is what the king said. I will cut off your head. Whose head? It is Queen's head. He cried bitterly when he said this because he was very sad because he loved his queen so much. Actually don't want to say this actually, but there is no other way because if the 13th child was born by any mistake, then what to do? The only option is after December it is better to kill queen. Right. So he cried bitterly when he said this, for he was extremely fond of the queen. Of course, it made the queen very uneasy because she knew that it would distress the king very much if he had to cut off her head, and it would not be very nice for her. But so happened that there is no need for either of them to worry. So there was nothing to worry because fortunately something else happened because September was the last daughter they ever had. So, so after September, then what happened? The queen only had sons. Fortunately, September was the last daughter or the younger daughter, and after that, whoever born, they were all sons. So they can look for another name for the sons, right? So the queen only had sons after that, and they were called by the letters of the alphabet. So there was no cause for anxiety there for a long time since she had only reached the letter J. So from so now after that, then for the queen it was sons who born and it start from letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So this many sons were born for the queen after that. Now the king of Siam's daughters had their characters permanently embittered by having to change their names in this way. So there is a problem because when you change your names every day, so these princes, all these princes, their character or their behavior also changes every time. They have different characters. And the older ones whose name of course had been changed oftener than the others had their characters more permanently embittered. But September is different because her name was changed was not yet changed, right? But all other daughters, including August, all their names got changed. So September's name did not change very occasionally. So she has a permanent character. But all other behavior, all other princes, their character changed very often. But September, who had never known what it was to be called anything but September, except, of course, by her sisters, who, because their characters were embittered, called all sorts of names, had a very sweet and a charming nature. The king of Siam had a habit which I think might be usefully imitated in Europe. Instead of receiving presents on his birthday, he gave them, and it looks as though he liked it. For he used often to say he was sorry he had only been born on one day, because we all have this habit of celebrating birthdays every year. But the king has a different perspective here because he is a methodical minded man. For him, it's like he born on one day. So every year you don't need to celebrate my birthday. So whatever presents he get, he just share it with the citizens or with the other members in the kingdom. So, but in this way, he managed in course of time to give away all his wedding presents and the loyal addresses which the mayors of the cities in Siam presented him with, and all his own crowns which has gone out of fashion. One year on his birthday, not having anything else handy, he gave each of his daughters beautiful green parrot in a beautiful golden cage. So that year he decided to gift all his daughters with a beautiful green parrot, and they were placed, all these parrots were placed in a beautiful golden cage. So this is what it is. There were 9 of them, and on each cage was written the name of the month, like January, February, March. So, and the name was already written on the cage itself, and they will be gifted this parrots with the golden cage, which was the name of the princess it belonged to. The 9 princes were very proud of their parrots, and they spent an hour every day and in teaching them to talk. So why they are spending time every day? They are spending time every day to make the parrots speak. Now, presently, all the parrots could say, God save the king. This is what they learned. So, especially the January, February, and March, their parrots started saying, God save the king. And some of them could say pretty Polly in no less than 7 Oriental languages. So, other daughters, like other than January, February, and March, other daughters, other sisters, their parents started saying pretty Polly. But one day, when the Princess September went to say good morning to her parrot, she found it lying dead at the bottom of its golden cage. So, only for Princess September, her parrot died. But she was completely upset with that. She burst into flood of tears, and nothing that her maids of honor could say comforted her. She cried so much that the maids of honor, not knowing what to do, told the queen, and the queen said it was stuff and nonsense that the child had better go to bed without any supper. So that day, without having any supper, she decided to go to bed. The maids of honor wanted to go to a party, so they put the Princess September to bed as quickly as they could. But now what happened? Because she's now actually in the bed. So, and she didn't have her supper also. So now what happened? The maid of honors wanted to go to a party, so they put the Princess September to bed as quickly as they could and left her by herself. And while she lay in her bed, crying still, even though she left rather hungry, she saw a little bird hop into her room. She took her thumb out of her mouth and sat up. Then the little bird began to sing, and he sang a beautiful song all about the lake in the king's garden and the willow trees that looked at themselves in the still water and the goldfish that glided in and out of the branches there were reflected in it. When he had finished, the princess was not crying any more, and she quite forgot that she had had no supper at all. That was a very nice song, she said. The little bird gave her a bow, for artists are naturally good manners and they like to be appreciated. Imagine it, the bird is bending itself because this bird is very small, a little bird, but it can sing very beautifully. Would you care to have me instead of your parrot? Said the little bird. It's true that I am not so pretty to look at, but on the other hand, I have a much better voice. So I'm not that beautiful like that of your beautiful, no, green parrot in the beautiful golden cage. But I'm not that beautiful. But what I can assure you is that I can sing you songs every day, because I have a better voice. So this is what the bird said. Princess September clapped her hands with delight, and then the little bird hopped onto the end of her bed and sang her to sleep. When she awoke next day, the little bird was still sitting there, and as she opened her eyes, he said, "Good morning." The maids of honor brought in her breakfast, and he ate rice out of her hand, and he had his bath in his saucer. He drank out of it too. The maids of honor said they didn't think it was very polite to drink one's bath water. But Princess September said that was the artistic temperament. When he had finished his breakfast, he began to sing again so beautifully that the maids of honor were quite surprised, for they had never heard anything like it. And the Princess September was very proud and happy. "Now I want to show you to my 8 sisters," said the princess. So now what will happen? Because she is now she want to show the little bird to all the sisters. Because she is now very proud and very happy, right? She stretched out the first finger of her right hand so that it served as a perch, and the little bird flew down and sat on it. Then, followed by her maids of honor, she went through the palace and called on each of the princes in turn, starting with January. So from January onwards, she called January, February, March, April, May. So likewise, she called each one of them and asked them to come down and see her, beautiful little bird. For she was mindful of etiquette and going all the way down to August. And for each of the princesses, the little bird sang a different song. But the parrots could only say, "Good God save the king" and Pretty Polly, because all others parrots, they all have their green parrot with them, right? But their can only say, "God save the king." And some parrots will say, "Pretty Polly." At last, she showed the little bird to the king and the queen. They were surprised and delighted. "I knew I was right to send you to bed without any supper," said the queen very proudly. "This bird sings much better than the parrots," said the king. "I should have thought you got quite tired of hearing people say 'God save the king,'" said the queen. "I can think why those girls wanted to teach their parents to say it too. The sentiment is adorable," said the king, "and I never mind how often I hear it. But I do get tired of hearing those parrots say 'Pretty Polly' every time." "They say it in 7 different languages," said the princess. "I dare say they do," said the king, "but it reminds me too much of my counselors. They say the same thing in 7 different ways, and it never means anything in any way they say it." The princesses, their characters, as I have already said, being naturally embittered, were vexed at this. So now all the princesses, all the 7 princesses from January to August, all the 8 princes, they all get jealous of Princess September's little bird, because this bird can sing beautiful songs which their parrot cannot. But the Princess September ran through all the rooms of the palaces, singing like a lark, while the little bird flew round and round her, singing like a nightingale, which indeed it was. Things went on like this for several days, and then the eight princesses put their heads together. They went to September and sat down in a circle. So now they are planning. So the eighth one, that means August, she asked all her sisters to come together and said that we have a plan. Somehow we want to do, we want to think against that or plot against that little bird, because that bird can sing, and the king and the queen is very much happy with the little bird, but they are not happy with our birds, our green parrots. So now August is very much jealous, and like August, all other sisters are also jealous. So they had a meeting together. So they went to September and sat down in a circle round her, hiding their feet as is proper for Siam as princess to do. My poor September, they said, we are sorry for the death of your beautiful parrot. It must be dreadful for you not to have a pet bird as we have. So, we have all put our pocket money together and we are going to buy you a lovely green and yellow parrot. So, now what September said? Thank you for nothing. I have a pet bird which sings the most charming songs to me, and I don't know what on earth I should do with a green and a yellow parrot. Now, January sniffed, then February sniffed, then March sniffed. In fact, all the princesses sniffed, but in their proper order of precedence. When they had finished, September asked them, why do you sniff? Have you all got colds in the head? Well, my dear, they said, it's absurd to talk of your bird when the little fellow flies in and out just as he likes. They looked round the room and raised their eyebrows so high that their foreheads entirely disappeared. You will get dreadful wrinkles, said September. Do you mind our asking where your bird is now? They said. He's gone to pay a visit to his father-in-law, said the Princess September. And what makes you think that he will come back? Asked the princess. He will always come back. So I have no doubt that he will surely come back to me after visiting his father-in-law. So the little bird is not around at that point of time because he went out of the palace to visit his father-in-law. So September thinks that he will definitely come back. But now this is the right time for the other eight princes to poke their head into this particular situation, and they tries to say that, do you think that he is going to come back to you? I don't think so. So likewise each of the princes also agreed to it. Well, my dear, said the eighth prince, if you will take our advice, you won't run any risk like that. If he come back, and mind you, if he does, you will be lucky. Pop him into the cage and keep him there inside the cage. That's the only way you can be sure of him. Otherwise, he will go every time and he will not come back. So, what is the assurance that he will come back to you? So, make sure that you will lock him inside the golden cage and place him there so that it's for sure that he will be inside and sing songs for you, and he will not fly away, and he will not go out of the palace again. Safety first, said her sisters ominously. They got up and walked out of the room, shaking their heads, and they left September very uneasy. It seemed to her that her little bird was away a long time, and she could not think what he was doing. Something might have happened to him. So as of now, it's more than 2 days or more than some days, which as she expected. So the bird has not returned back. So now she is confused when he is going to come back. What with the hawks and men with snails, you never knew what trouble he might get into. Besides, he might forget her, or he might take a fancy to somebody else. That would be dreadful. Oh, she wished he were safely back again and in the golden cage that stood there empty and ready. For when the maids of honor had hurried the dead parrot, they had left the cage in its old place. Suddenly, September heard a tweet tweet just behind her ear, and she saw the little bird sitting on her shoulder. He had come in so quietly and alighted so softly that she had not heard him. I wondered what on earth had become of you, said the princess. I thought you would wonder that, said the little bird. The fact is, I very nearly didn't come back tonight at all. My father-in-law was giving me a party and they all wanted me to stay, but I thought you would be anxious. Under the circumstance, this was a very unfortunate remark. So now what happened? So the princess, other princess also mentioned a lot about the situation. That means if he goes back again and he will not come back, and you will be sad. So it's better to lock him inside this golden cage. So now the princess has to plan accordingly to make this bird get into this golden cage so that she can lock him and keep him safe inside the golden cage. So initially, the bird didn't get any suspicion. He was not confused. He was not suspected in nothing. And he was so surprised when she carried him over to the cage, popped him, and shut the door. So now, very carefully, very tactfully, she take the bird and put him inside the cage. Shut the door on him that for a moment he could think of nothing to say. But in a moment or two, he hopped up on the ivory porch and said, what is a job? There's no job, said September. So initially he thought she is trying to play with him. But slowly he realized that the situation is getting bad or going worse. So now he started asking questions. Why did you lock me inside this particular cage? What is the reason? So she said that I'm afraid of the cats that are prowling about in the palace tonight, and I think that you'll be safer much inside this particular cage. So initially he thought, okay, that might be the reason. He trusted princess because the princess, it's for the first time she is behaving like this. So the bird said, perfectly, said the little bird. But why did you put me in this cage without saying anything about it? I don't think it's the sort of place I like. So he said that I don't like to be inside the cage actually. So I shouldn't have slept a wink all night. So in the morning, so he said that I am not able to sleep inside this cage. I want to go out. I want to fly freely. I want to enjoy everything. So, but why are you forcing me to put inside this particular cage? So he ate a very good supper and then began to sing. But in the middle of the song, he stopped. I don't know what is the matter with me, he said. So he is not feeling happy inside this cage. So initially he had his supper, but he thought that in the morning because maybe no princess might open the doors and so that he can move freely. But what happened was that in the morning, when she woke up, he actually forced her to say, wake up, he said. Open the doors of this cage and let me out. I want to have a good fly while the dew is still on the ground. But the princess said, you are much better off wherever you are, so you sit inside the cage. You don't need to go out anywhere. You have a beautiful golden cage. It was made by the best workman in my papa's kingdom. And my papa was so pleased with it that he cut off his head so that he should never make another one. So you don't need to worry. This is the best cage in this whole kingdom. So you don't, this is the most strongest one. So no one is going to attack you. But that's not what the bird actually wants. You want to move freely. So he said that let me out, said the little bird. And he tried to slip through the bars of the cage, but of course he couldn't, and he beat against the door. But of course, again, he could not open the door. So he got so tired. Then what happened later? But the little bird stood in the corner of his cage, looking out at the blue sky and never sang a note. He never sang all day. So what's the good of sulking? Said the princess. Why don't you sing and forget your troubles? You are very safe inside this cage, right? But the bird said, how can I sing? I am not happy. I want to see the trees. I want to see the lake and the green rice growing in the fields. I will be happy, and then only I can sing songs. I will not be happy if I sit inside this beautiful golden cage. I will not be able to enjoy my life inside this. So suddenly she realized it's not good. So the bird said, I will take you out. Sorry, the princess said, I will take you out every day because I love you so much. I will take you out every day to see this, green rice fields and everything. So she took the bird along with the cage to see all this. So the bird said, it's not the same thing, said the old bird. Said the little bird. The rice fields and the lake and the willow trees look quite different when you see them through the bars of a cage. So she brought him home again and gave him his supper. But he wouldn't eat a thing. The princess was a little anxious at this and asked her sisters what they thought about it. You must be firm, all the sisters said. So she thought, okay, then I should be very arrogant and adamant that I am not going to let him go out of the cage. But later, what happened? September did not see how that was going to do her very much good. She realized that though the sisters, they are elder to me, though they said this, but I think that this is not the right decision. I have to think the other way around. So now she realized that I have to take decision myself. Perhaps he will have got used to his cage by tomorrow, she said. She thought that, okay, I will wait for one more day. Maybe he might get used to this cage. And next day, when she awoke, she cried out, good morning, in a cheerful voice. But there was no answer from the little bird. So she jumped out of the bed and saw the cage, tried to open the cage, and she saw that the bird is laying at the bottom on his side with his eyes closed, and he looked as if he were dead. She opened the door and putting her hand and lifted him out. She gave a sob of relief, for she felt that his little bird was beating still, so there is small life in it. Okay, she thought he was dead, but later she realized that he was not dead, but there is little life in him. Wake up, little bird, she said. She began to cry, and her tears fell on the little bird. He opened his eyes and felt that the bars of the cage were no longer round him. I cannot sing unless I am free, and if I cannot sing, I die, he said. So if you let me go, I can sing forever and sing beautiful songs for you. If you put me inside the cage, I will not be able to sing like this. So the princess gave a great song. Then take your freedom, she said. So now she decided that okay, so now I should let the bird go, let the bird fly away. Then take your freedom, she said. I shut you in a golden cage because I loved you and wanted to have you all to myself. But I never knew it would kill you. Go, fly away among the trees that are round the lake and fly over the green rice fields. I love you enough to let you be happy in your own way. She threw open the window and gently placed a little bird on the sill. He shook himself a little. Come and go as you will, little bird. So now the bird decided to fly away. He opened his wings and flew right away into the blue. So the princess burst into tears, and also she was very happy and relaxed now. But what happened? Towards the end of the story, you can find that September kept her window open day and night so that the little bird might come into her room whenever he felt inclined. So now there is no compulsion that he should stay inside the palace. He can come and go whenever he wants to, and that freedom is there. And this was very good for her. So she grew extremely beautiful. So that happiness made her beautiful, made Princess September beautiful. And when she was old enough, she married the king of Cambodia and was carried all the way to the city in which he lived on a white elephant. But what about the other sisters? Her other sisters never slept with their windows open. So what happened? So they all grew extremely ugly as well as disagreeable. Their character, the window, all these are symbolic here because Princess September always keep her window open. So it made her beautiful. Even she is a free and an open-minded woman. But at the same time, her other sisters who always close the window, they turned out to be ugly, and likewise their character also becomes like something which is disagreeable for anyone to marry them. So when the time came to marry them off, they were given away to the king's counselors with a pound of tea and a Siamese cat. So this is how the story ended. So it's a fairy tale, as we mentioned. It seems to be a very simple story, but of course, the beauty of this story is that it gives a beautiful message towards the end of the story. That means, like Princess September, one should know what values freedom, what's important in one's life. It is happiness and freedom that's the most important, basic necessity for one's life, and it is not jealous, and it is not beauty or anything, but more than that, it is actually the freedom and the happiness that is important, and it is that freedom and happiness that made Princess September beautiful towards after when she was grown old. So she looked so beautiful compared to all other eight sisters. So this openness and freedom and the value of beauty, so and in happiness, so that actually adds more to Princess September, and this is what the message mainly talks of. And in this particular chapter, there is a lot about the glossary, vocabulary, and all those terms. Also, some comprehension questions which you need to focus on. But as of now, we are going to focus. We are going to stop here. But it is important to understand that these texts, though it's a fairy tale, it conveys a very beautiful message to the readers about how to enjoy life and what is actually the definition of happiness.